Welcome, everybody. It's so great to see everybody here for our rehearsal. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my presentation that I am going to use to go over what we're going to be talking about today. So in one moment, you should see my PowerPoint come up. And here we go. So today we're going to be talking about the Crowdcast system and how you are going to utilize this to participate in your virtual conference and present at the conference. So first I'm going to open up with talking about the session flow. The first thing that we're going to mention is that this is going to be a live broadcast that is going to be recorded. So the recordings of your presentation are going to be available to the attendees after completion of the conference. You have a few people that are going to be inside of your session with you, and one of those people is your technical host. Your technical host is going to be charged with doing things like playing a sponsor video if there's one available prior to your presentation. Also helping you make sure you know how to mute and unmute your microphone and your video camera so you're able to come on live and present. They'll also help you with the screen sharing, which is kind of what I just did, where I pulled up my PowerPoint presentation to be able to display to you today. During your presentations, attendees will be able to interact with you through chatting and submitting questions through the Q&A box. At the end of your presentation, with time remaining, the moderator will be able to deliver questions to you, and you'll be able to ask or answer those questions live right after your presentation. To end sharing your presentation, you hit the Stop Sharing button. When you go to start your presentation, you start sharing. So it's really easy to stop sharing as well. So if you have your presentation up, you're able to stop that presentation so you can go on full camera view. Some of you are presenting in a series of, with a series of presenters. You might have 2 or 3 folks that are presenting all together. You're going to present sequentially one at a time. So you'll each have your own PowerPoint presentation, and maybe the tech host will play a sponsor video or a loop. Then the first presenter would come on, they would start sharing their screen, then they would stop sharing it, then the second presenter would start sharing, they would turn on their video camera, they would present, then they would stop sharing, and it would just go down the line like that. So when you don't want to be visible or heard, that's when you turn off your mic and camera. And we'll go through these a little bit more in greater detail as we go. And the tech host may also want to play a slide loop after your session as well. So there'll be some content before, there'll be your content. You'll answer questions live, and then we might close out that program with another slide loop before we end the session. I want to say it's very important to stay on time. If you run out of time, the moderator may need to unmute themselves to alert you. So it's a really good practice to keep your own time. So the first thing we want to note is how long is your session supposed to be? So some sessions maybe are 30 minutes. Some sessions are 60 minutes. You want to know how long your session allotment is. Then you're going to want to keep track of your presentation time. So I found the best way to do that is with just even a cell phone, where you can put on your stopwatch or a clock and you can monitor how long you're presenting. You might have an idea in your head like, okay, this is a 20-minute session, or excuse me, a 30-minute session. So I would like to present for 20 minutes, which will give me 10 minutes for Q&A. So you would set your timer for 20 minutes to try to keep you on time. So before your session starts, we would like you to enter in 10 minutes prior. This is what we call the green room. And how you do this is you click on your link to enter in the session on the conference page. Your name will appear at the bottom, and the tech host who will be inside waiting for you, they're already inside of the green room waiting for you. They'll see your name pop up and they know that you're a presenter, so they will invite you into the green room. And you'll get a little pop-up on your screen that says, would you like to accept and join? And you're going to go ahead and click yes, I'm going to accept and join. So you click that green button and that catapults you right into the green room. And what's great about the green room is that's a place that you can unmute your microphone, your video camera. We can practice pulling up your screen share and your presentation to make sure that everything is okay before we go live. It's basically a private spot that we can meet without the attendees seeing us to prepare you for your live presentation. So it's, again, important to save that 10 minutes prior to your start to get into that green room, because that's the only time that we have to get you prepped prior to your broadcast. So we'll be doing those final assessments, like I mentioned, making sure your audio, video, and screen share is good to go. Right now, I want to focus on your mic and video. To turn off your microphone and your video, you'll have an avatar located at the bottom of your screen. You may even have one of those now, but it probably doesn't have this menu that pops up if you hover over it. That little avatar, when you're in the green room or when you're presenting live, you'll hover over your name with your avatar and this menu pops up. If you click on the microphone, your audio is live. If you click on the camera, your video is live. To turn off your camera and video, you click on those two buttons again, and that's how you toggle on and off. You'll turn your mic and video off at the start of the broadcast while we run a sponsor loop. You'll turn your mic and video camera on when it's time for you to present. And then when your presentation is over, you're going to turn your mic and camera off, and we will go ahead and run a final loop, and the session will end. So I'm going to talk about sharing your screen, sharing your presentation, PowerPoint, or Keynote, and going live. So tip number 1, use Google Chrome. Google Chrome works the best with Crowdcast. So I know a lot of us have our favorites, whether it be Safari or Firefox. We always recommend, and what Crowdcast recommends is using Google Chrome. You're going to practice sharing your screen in the green room, but you all have a free version of Google Chrome of Crowdcast right now. So when we're done here, with this rehearsal, you can certainly practice presenting, and you're going to want to practice sharing your screen. So you'll do that in the green room with the tech host, but you can also do it at home to get familiar with the commands. They're very simple commands, but it just takes some familiarity, just getting used to it. And the more you play around, you're not going to break anything. So don't be afraid to press a button or try different things. And the more you do that, the more comfortable you'll be. So right now, I'm going to kind of walk through the steps that I found work really well. So number 1, before you do anything else, you're going to open your presentation on your computer. You're not going to launch it, though. You're not going to go into that full screen mode and launch it. You're not going to minimize it either. We don't want it to go all the way down to the bottom. We want to keep your presentation off of the full screen mode, but shrink it so it's a small little window to the side. Then you're going to hover over that avatar I spoke about earlier in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, and that will pop up the menu that looks like that, and you select Screen Share, and that's the little computer with an arrow on it. When you do that, a window pops up, and that window is going to say, do you want to use the application window Or do you want to share your entire screen? Well, that will depend on how you're presenting. If you're presenting using a PowerPoint presentation, you're going to go ahead and choose Application Window. If you're using Keynote, you're going to choose your entire screen. Then it prompts you to select your presentation. And your presentation that we pulled up in step number 1 will be shown on the screen, and that's the one you're going to select. Then it prompts you to push a select share button, which you hit share. And now your presentation will be shortly about to come up live. So that's the last step that you have to do for your presentation. But first, we have to go ahead before we present and turn on your mic and camera. So those steps were for sharing your presentation. You do that first. Now we go to get your camera and mic on. So you go back to that avatar that we talked about. You hover over that and the menu pops up again. We simply click our 2 commands that we've learned, the mic and the video camera. And then after you pop on with your audio and your video camera, you're now able to launch your presentation in full mode. A couple of tips. You're not able to view the Crowdcast window while presenting full screen. However, your camera, your presentation, and your audio is all coming through to the end audience there. You might not be able to see the text box or the chat box, excuse me. You won't be able to see a Q&A box. Your things will look a little different on your screen, but you will be presenting, you will be displaying everything out to the audience. You'll also see on the bottom of your screen a little Crowdcast icon, and it's in blue, it says stop sharing. Well, we know you're sharing because it has that little box that says stop sharing. So rest assured, although you may not be looking at that same Crowdcast window that you were in before, prior to launching your presentation, you are being seen and heard to the audience. Let's talk about some, oh, excuse my barking dogs. I hope that's not coming through. Okay, let's talk about some important tips. I said only use Google Chrome browser. I've said that before, and we're going to keep preaching that. Use Google Chrome browser. If you're using another browser and you find that maybe it's lagging or things don't sound good or the video is blurry, switch to Chrome, and that usually fixes everything. If you're comfortable using a second monitor, you can certainly do that, and that will assist with your screen share in Google and Crowdcast, so you can kind of view things a little bit better. If you're not comfortable with a second screen or second monitor, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say using a second monitor, then don't worry about it. It's certainly something that you don't need to do at all. If you have any sound in your presentation, it will not be heard. Sound is not supported by Crowdcast, unfortunately. So if you have a video in your presentation, the sound won't be able to be heard throughout that video. All sessions are in Eastern Daylight Time, so keep that in mind no matter where you are in the country or where you are in the world. This conference, your session times are all in Eastern Daylight Time. Like I said before, you're going to want to join that session 10 minutes prior to the start so you can get inside of the green room and have that private time with the tech host and the moderator. And, you know, that'll be your last minute time prepping before you go live. You always want to be prepared to unmute and mute your microphone and camera during your session. If your computer is lagging, if you're not seeing things in real time, you can see people maybe freezing up or things like that. One of the best things that you can do is hit refresh, and your refresh is usually at the top of your screen, next to your browser bar. It's a little arrow that's a little circle, half circle there, and that's your refresh button. And you'll want to hit that refresh button if things are taking too slow for you. Remember to set a stopwatch or a timer to keep track of your presentation time so we don't go over. And you want to ensure that your internet connection is at top speed. And how we do that is, well, the first way would be to make sure you're the only sole user of internet in your house. Anytime someone else joins that same internet connection, maybe your kids are in their Zoom room classroom, or your significant other is watching a movie or the game, you don't want to share that internet. It's time for them to get off, and then it's time for you to utilize the internet solely. So if that's possible, that's your best way to get some strong internet. Another way is to go ahead and use one of those Ethernet connections, plugging it into your computer. That'll give you the fastest internet because you're not relying on wireless, which sometimes can drop out. So just make sure your internet is as strong as possible by utilizing some of those tips. If you're curious about how fast your internet is running right now, you can Google a speed test. So go to your Google browser, your search bar there, and type in a speed test, and it'll come up. It's a simplistic speed test, but it gives you a good idea of how fast or slow your internet is running. So I'm going to open this up to questions right now. And it occurred to me that I forgot to mention in our flow that after we played a sponsor loop, we are actually going to be introducing your session. So the moderator at that point will actually come on and say a few words about who is presenting. So they might say, today we have a presentation by so-and-so, get ready, it's going to be a great presentation. And then they would go dark and you would come live. If there's multiple presenters in your presentation, maybe there's a few of you, your moderator will just do one introduction. So they'll go ahead and introduce all of you at the beginning. So how it would go is we would run our little sponsor video or maybe a little loop. The moderator will pop up and do the introduction, whether it be for one presenter or three of you. Then you will come on and present. You will go live. You unmute your camera and your audio. You're sharing your screen. You go dark, and the next person comes up, and it finishes like that till the end. So I would like to open this up for some questions, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to invite maybe Kathy Palmer, if you would like to come on screen with us today. And if Matt would like to come on screen as well, welcome. You could see the screen will accommodate however many people are coming on. So it takes care of all of that behind the scenes. So you don't have to worry, is there too many people on screen? Will they see me? Will they see my presentation? Yes, yes, and yes. The screen kind of takes care of that for you. So this is the first time I'm looking through some of these questions here. Kathy, is there anything that's come through that you would like addressed to everybody right now, or anything that maybe I forgot to mention or you would like to elaborate on?
Yeah, Derek mentioned in the chat, and I see Jeff is just answering it, but if the speaker boxes are currently in your presentation will be visible during ours, and I think that Derek's saying the little icons that were along the bottom of the screen because it cuts off the text on the PowerPoint.
Let's see here. Will the speaker boxes currently in your presentation be visible during ours? I asked because it cuts off the text on the PowerPoint. Well, the answer is yes. Yes, they will.
Okay.
I don't think, now you can control this somewhat. Like if you're referring to this chat box, I'm just taking a look, you can minimize that chat box. And you can minimize the question box if that helps at all while the presentation is going on. I'm not sure if that helps. But,
Okay.
but yes, the avatars at the bottom are static. I brought on screen here, and you'll see him, Matt Hale. Matt is actually going to be your technical host inside of the room. So he was kind enough to join us today for this rehearsal. And Matt will be able to help you with all those last minute, situations that you're going to encounter. So he'll help get you set up and ready to go.
Brooke, there's a few questions in the Q&A box. Steve Paganelli is wanting to know any nuances for screen share. He'll be using Google Slides.
I would say if it's Google Slides in the Chrome browser, it might be better to share the browser tab, but we'll try desktop or browser tab and see how it looks.
And if you have the ability to play around that at home, once you hit screen share, it'll give you a couple of choices, and choose one and then choose the other, and you can see how they kind of look. But I'm glad to hear that you're using Google Slides, because I imagine it will be very compatible.
Okay. Wendy's asking about how she would get in the green room. And Wendy, just so you know, everybody will be in the session like they are now. And when it's time for your session, 10 minutes before, Matt, who's going to be controlling everything, will invite you to enter the green room along with the speakers for your session. So you'll have something pop up on your screen and say, do you accept? And then you say yes, and then you get moved into the green room. And Elon Cole is asking about sound playing from embedded videos. Those videos need to be sent to me today, and Matt has to work some magic on them so they can play. So if you can put something into your presentation that says, not really play video here, but something like that, when it gets to that point, then Matt will have it queued up and ready to go, and he will be able to play it.
Like, say, for example, it's the Elon Cole video. It'd be nice to say Elon Cole video. But you don't have to put like it's a hold slide, but maybe just have something for the title, because I'll have to basically switch to my playback, because I have to do a little bit of work in this platform to make it play with audio. If it doesn't have audio, that's fine. If it's
Yep. And the good thing about that is Matt will be there with you the entire time. Matt will be able to pull up his slide share when he wants to roll that video when the cue comes. So you won't have to do too much there. You'll just kind of sit back and let Matt kind of take control, and then he'll minimize again, and you'll be up and ready to go. What other questions have been coming through, or anything that has just popped up? Looks like we're answering pretty much everything.
I haven't seen anything else.
Yep. Just talk about that flow one more time. You're going to go into your session. You go to the conference website. You go to your session. You are in your session just like you are today with everybody else. But since you're going to be presenting, Matt Hale will invite you into the green room. So hang tight, sit tight, and know that you'll get an invitation that will pop up on just your screen and your screen alone. And it'll say, would you like to come into the green room, or would you like to accept this invitation? And you just say, yes, I do. And then the computer does its thing, and it takes you right behind the scenes with Matt, and you'll have access to your camera and your audio. And you can certainly use it in the green room without anybody seeing or hearing you. When it's time to start the presentation, we're going to do our best to start right on time. So you want to make sure you get into that green room 10 minutes early. When it's time to start, we're going to go ahead and play a sponsor video, or maybe roll a loop. The moderator is going to come on camera and introduce your session. Then the moderator will go dark. And that's your cue to come on board. And that's when you press your screen share, you get that set up and you get your camera going, and then you pop up and now you're live. When you're done, you go dark, you remove your screen share and take your camera and audio off. And that's Matt's cue to know that you're done. And now he comes up and he rolls his video as well.
Are there any questions about the multiple speakers in a session? Because I know that originally I had sent out something saying, let's put everybody's presentation into one to make it easier for Matt. But I understand that that is not going to work very well for the presenters or the moderators. And Matt said he can work with that. So I did send out something today saying you can keep them separate. The first person who is going when there's multi speakers in a session will have that first slide saying who the speakers are. The moderator will introduce everyone at the beginning, and then all the speakers will speak, and then we will do all the Q&A at the end. And the moderator will be fielding the Q&A in the box at the bottom where it says ask a question. And somebody else just posted a question. There's a new one up here. Let's see. Wendy says, as the moderator, I will be fielding the questions. In this presentation now, the chat is visible, but not the questions. How do you see the questions? Wendy, there's a box at the bottom that says ask a question. It has a number 4 by it where you just typed your question. That's where you go. I'm just going in there to read them. You should be able to see that.
I don't know if attendees, if they're not part of the presenters, if they can see the questions from everyone else, though. But
that could be possible. Sometimes, okay, cool. Yeah, if it's...
Yes, they can see them. There's people are saying they can see them.
Good. Okay,
I was worried about that. So that's another thing. If there are a lot of questions coming in, and say you have multiple presenters, that the first presenter's done and they want to answer some of the questions while the second presenter is going, they could definitely do that via the Q&A commenting. Mm-hmm. So that always helps in case we are running tight on time. Mm-hmm.
I think this is a quiet group. There's not very many questions and not much going on in the chat.
Oh, it's a quiet group, yes. If you need to collate your questions, depending on, you know, what level of organization you like, sometimes you could even copy and paste some really important questions to a Word document as well that you could kind of keep to the side to read aloud at the end when you're doing the live Q&A. That's for the moderator to do. That could be a tactic to keep yourself organized as well. If it allows you to copy and paste, and you can kind of clip some of those questions and put them on an open Word doc to have at your disposal to read. You could even take a snapshot of some of the questions that are coming through to have them on your phone to read back, so that you can get kind of creative too, especially if a lot of questions are coming in and you don't want to lose track of some of those really important ones. You can kind of get creative. I have people sometimes just write them down. Oh, I don't want to forget that one. And they make a special note of that as well. But the good thing is those questions will always be retained in the question box. So you can scroll up and down to get to any question that you want to deliver during the Q&A session. Well, I hope everybody is getting excited because we're getting close to the big day. And it's great that you all got into this session wonderfully here, because this is exactly how it'll be on show day as well. So the more that you're getting into the system and playing around, even chatting and asking questions, the more comfortable you will be when it's time for your presentation. So
Suzanne asked about the chat. She thought it was just going to be for the presenters. And that was something that we had talked about on the first day, is that we had hoped we would be able to do that, but we cannot lock it down that way. So everybody will be able to see the chat. And Derek was wondering about encouraging moderators, encouraging attendees to ask a question over chat. I think that's a great idea. Mm-hmm. You know, so if there's a thought starter out there, you know, drop it in the chat. It's just another way for networking.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Well, I don't think that there's any other questions coming in. So if there's no other questions, I think we can just call it a wrap.
That's right. And if anything does come up, you could always feel free to, you know, ask a question, get it to Kathy.
Susanna's saying wait.
Oh.
So
we can wait
a second and let her type her question in there.
Yeah. And again, if something comes up when you're practicing at home, you know, send an email. We'll reply, you know, right away and get you the help that you need. So the rehearsal doesn't have to stop here. So you can continue this rehearsal at home and practice and continue to reach out with any questions or concerns you have.
Moderators, please make sure if there are more than one speaker, they know their order. Yes.
That's great advice. Yep. And that's something that you could even discuss and make sure everybody is clear on when you enter that practice session real quick. Hey, who's going first, second, and third? Let's get that down so we don't step on each other's toes. Make sure you know the length of your presentation as well, how much time is allotted for everybody. And again, as a moderator, unfortunately, if someone's taking too much time and they're going way over, you might have to unmute your audio or your video and just give them a friendly nudge that this has to be the last question or we're running short on time. So we have to keep things moving.
The practice session is in the green room. That is correct. People will be invited to the green room 10 minutes before their presentation is supposed to start. And we would be able to chat in the green room, all of us, and the audience cannot hear us. So if there's any last minute questions, Matt will be in as well as our tech, and he would be able to answer those.
Mm-hmm. Yep, your green room time is priceless. So that's, you don't want to be late to the green room. You want to give yourself as much time as you can, and 10 minutes is usually just perfect.
Wendy's asking, how do we access Crowdcast to participate or to practice?
When you logged into Crowdcast today, they should have, you know, you should have to maybe set up a small little account, maybe with your username or your name or your email. So with that, you should be able to then go back into Crowdcast's main website and access some of their free features.
And Mark was wondering about the invitation to the green room, and I just responded, everybody who's in the audience, there's a list of people, and when it's time to invite somebody up to the green room, where it says people at the bottom right now, it says 51, Matt will click on that and he will invite the people for that session into the green room.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen again really quickly here. And I'm going to pull up on my PowerPoint presentation. Give me one moment.
So along the bottom, I just want to say, you can see Brooke and she's pulling up her presentation. You can see me still. And so that's how it's going to be when we are live.
Mm-hmm. I want to get back to my screen here that has an image of what that button looks like when we're inviting you into the green room. So this is what it'll look like. It says join on screen, and then you just hit accept and join. If you hit no thanks, then it'll take you back right to where you were. So you want to just accept that. You'll see the invitation pop up.
Mike is asking about practicing in the green room, and Jeff responded that there's not a green room practice scheduled, but Mike, the Crowdcast has a free version. You can download it and set up a meeting and invite the people in your session and participate and practice that way. Oh, another question came up. If we are listening to the session prior to ours, will the green room invite come up during that session? It possibly will if they're running over, but we have 15 minutes between most sessions. We have 10 minutes between one or two. So we're hoping to finish up, have time for a very, very quick break, and then invite the next group up onto stage and to the green room.
Yeah, I would say that one session has to end before we begin the green room of another session. So I think really what will happen is we will end the broadcast of a current session. And when we do that, you all kind of travel together to the next session. And on your screen, you'll see, it might say something like, okay, we're waiting a few minutes before the next session will begin. You kind of sit there and just wait a minute or two, and then you'll get that pop up to be invited in. So I really don't think you'll have to worry about viewing a session and then having to get invited into the green room. I believe that session will cease and then you will be invited.
Jeff just typed up, we'll bring the audience with us to the next session. The way that Marketing Outlook Forum is set up is there's 4 individual days, but it's set up as a multi-session event on each day. And so whoever is logged into the session, like this session, and then when we close it down and we open up the next session, Matt will bring the whole audience with us to the next session.
And that's great because you don't have to keep logging in and joining a new session. We take care of all that for you. So once you get in, you're here to stay. Sit tight. You don't have to close out or X out of any windows. You have to go to the washroom, just get up and go. But on your screen here, we're going to be traveling with you through the entire conference. So you don't have to unboard or board a new train. You stay on this train with us for the whole day.
Jessie Lynn is asking if there's a link or something to register for the presentation. Everybody is already registered. All of the speakers are registered for this. When registration closes tonight, tomorrow and the next day, I will be going in and getting a list of all of the people that are registered for Marketing Outlook Forum and uploading all of those emails into the various Crowdcast sessions that we have. Information about how to access the virtual platform will be coming out in the next day. And when you are in the virtual platform and you navigate to the session, there will be a button to say watch now. When you click that button, it will open up, and then this window will open up.
All the sessions are being recorded. Kathy, when are those records accessible?
They're usually pretty quick about having them ready to go. So I would say probably the next day they might even be ready and populated. It just depends at the end of the day how exhausted we are. If we can get them up there or not.
That's good. That's a great bonus for a virtual conference is that you get access to those recordings much quicker than we would in real time at a live conference. So you'll be able to view those fairly quickly, which is great.
Are you still planning to have conference proceedings available a couple weeks later? Yes, I'm hoping to have them up sooner than a couple weeks later. Everybody who pays for and attends Marketing Outlook Forum, or I guess if they don't even attend, if they pay, will get a link to access all of the video recordings, and then we will sell them after the event like we have done the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
Wendy has a question in the Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we answered all of those questions. Crowdcast has a free version. You can set it up to practice and invite, you can set up a meeting and invite people in your session to that meeting to practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I answered the next one.
And it's a good idea too to even practice sharing your screen. Even if you don't have anybody to join in that session with you, that's okay. You can practice pulling up your presentation on the screen and then closing it out, pulling it up again, closing it out, so you get comfortable with Crowdcast process for that, which is just like the steps that I outlined in that PowerPoint presentation. Kathy, we're going to have this recorded as well, right?
Yes, I'll be sending out a link to all of the speakers.
Mm-hmm. So you can pull up that presentation and kind of follow those steps that I laid out and try that out for yourself.
Okay. Anybody else before we go? Okay.
Good. You guys are going to do fabulous.
Well, very excited. Marketing Outlook Forum is in a couple days. Yay!
Thank you all for attending this. It was a pleasure being here with Kathy and Matt and the whole team, and seeing all of you here is going to be very exciting when we go live. So we're very excited for this.
All right.
Okay, well, just like in the real broadcast, I am going to end this, and this will boot you all out. So with that, I say adieu. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.